Can you spread it?
Alright, good evening, and welcome to the City Club of the Mahoning Valley at Packard Music Hall. I'm Sarah Doherty, Program Manager at Eastgate, and it's my pleasure to introduce the inaugural City Club State of the Valley Forum. I was reflecting earlier today that it was exactly a year ago that many people in this room came together about how to define economic development. And so I think it's more than appropriate that a year later we're continuing the conversation. Over the last several decades, Warren and Youngstown, like many smaller Midwestern legacy cities, have experienced economic and social decline due to expanded poverty, an aging population, disinvestment in neighborhoods, deteriorating housing stock, aging infrastructure, high employment, and a work skills gap. Recently, public-private sector collaboration, investments in technology and entrepreneurship, and efforts to rebuild the urban core have made the Mahoning Valley attractive to business owners, developers, and new residents. According to the Youngstown and Warren Regional Chamber's annual Economic Development Report Card, private companies invested more than $216 million in the Mahoning Valley in 2017. The investments encompassed 367 projects, resulting in more than 900 new jobs, while retaining an additional 2,400 jobs. We're here today to ask, is this momentum sustainable? Are these investments in jobs and capital expenditures improving the bottom line of our communities and our residents? We've assembled a group of local leaders to discuss these issues. Here to steer the conversation is WKSU News team reporter and digital editor, M.L. Schultze. M.L. Schultze came to WKSU as news director in July 2007 after 25 years, at the repository in Canton, where she was managing editor for nearly a decade. She's now the digital editor and an award-winning reporter and analyst who has appeared on NPR, Here and Now, The Takeaway, and C-SPAN. A native of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Ms. Schultze graduated from Syracuse University with a degree in magazine journalism and political science. Ms. Schultze, I turn the forum over to you.
Thank you. Holler if you can't hear. Can you hear? All right, I'm looking at the folks in the back. I'll start out by acknowledging that just about everybody in this room, and certainly everybody else on this stage, knows more about this community, the pluses and the minuses, than I do. But I'm hoping to bring a little bit of an outsider's look too tonight and let you guys provide some of the really probing questions in the second half about what is happening in a community you obviously all care deeply about, or you wouldn't be here tonight. So I'm going to start by introducing you to people you already know. Well, what the heck? Mayor Tito Brown, who was elected, let me see, the 51st mayor of Youngstown.
51st, yes.
He had just a few roles before that. I think was probably pretty well known in this community, everything from the school board to city council. Somebody who has lived this city his whole life.
Yes, sir.
All right. And then we have Mayor Franklin, who is the 35th mayor of Warren. Also, never left?
Never left.
Never left. UAW rep at one point, and council president and public service and safety director. Next to him, we have Michael Keys, and Mr. Keys has been the community development director of Warren since 2003 and has served in a variety of economic development and other community activities. And then we have, and I've been working real hard on this pronunciation, Dominic Marchianda. All right. And he has been the Economic Development Liaison for the City of Youngstown beginning in 2014 and has, again, a very long history with this community, with the Valley, which I am learning increasingly has a single identity, even when it has some split personalities within that single identity.
That's it.
Okay, gentlemen, I'd like to dive right in, and as much as possible, let's make this a conversation. I want you to interact with each other as well as our audience. So kind of forget I'm here. If I ask the right first question, that'll be easy. There you go. You know, I've heard the Valley described as a set of communities that are kind of collaborative competitors and competitive collaborators, and that is a lot of strength when it works well. How do you make it work well, and how do you address it when it stumbles a little bit?
I'll let my senior go first.
Thanks a lot, Mayor. And I appreciate the question, because the reality is, when you speak about economic development, investors and companies and businesses who are looking to relocate at a place, they really don't recognize political jurisdictions. They look at regions. So we have to have a collaborative approach and a collaborative strategy, one that includes sustainability and one that really meets the needs of the business owners and the investors. So we have to look at things from a regional approach in order to do our best in attracting jobs. That's why, joint economic development districts are partnerships throughout. We have a team approach with economic development, and it includes many players, many organizations who are in this audience, and that's very critical. When you have those hard stumbling points, I think you just have to regroup and get back to the table and understand that it's all about the people you serve. It's not about personal egos, and we've done a pretty good job at that.
I think it goes with, if you ever knew that family, the Mahoning Valley is a family. Correct. And it's always, well, if you're in the family, you can be a part of this conversation. You can be a part of, the partnerships that are going on. And you talk about, being competitive outside. Once we get, if we bring dollars into the valley, then we decide how we like to, split it up. But if you're not in the family, please stay away, because we're competitive in the Mahoning Valley. And Mayor Franklin and I, the last 2 weeks, we've been probably 3 cities, together. Because we understand how it's going to be important for people to see the connection, the alliance of Youngstown and Warren when they're divvying up those dollars. So we want them to see a united front. Now, when we get back home, we'll take that person, divide it up, and make sure that it's equitable for both communities.
Correct.
Is there a place for it to go beyond the valley? Is there some strength that you could get from going beyond, or do you lose identity at a certain point?
We'll never lose our identity. It's just that strong. But I think you look beyond the valley to look for different partnerships. It was interesting when Mayor Brown spoke about us being together. I feel like we've been like roommates for the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
We flew into D.C. with a chamber-sponsored event, and we were really doing partnership building in Washington, D.C., and trust building as well. But what was important was that we were there speaking with one voice as a valley on 2 major projects. So we want to continue that kind of initiative, those kinds of strategies. Recently, we were successful in getting a multinational partner in eBay, which is going to allow our retail community to access the global marketplace through the digital economy. So those partnerships are critical, and that will help all of our retail businesses. So we're very proud of that. But we are all one, and we'll always be one, because we have the same past.
And just to be piggyback, because one of the projects that when the mayors were down in D.C. they were talking about was the Ravenna.
Yes.
Even though that may not be considered by a lot of people as part of the valley, to get that project out of Ravenna would be very important to our valley. So yeah, that partnerships do exist outside the valley and are important.
And that project, for people who don't know what it is, can you talk about that?
Go ahead. Mayor?
No, you go ahead.
No.
It's the missile defense project. Excuse me, I'm coming apart here, like a Jackson. But it has the potential to bring thousands of jobs to the Ravenna arsenal. I think we made a great case for ourselves.
I think so too. Yeah, the missile defense was, we've talked about, we've looked at all the years that we've had this United States of America and the military system. We've looked at the West Coast, and we don't have one on the East Coast. So the thought was there's several places that would like to have it. A couple of communities said they don't want it. We believe that even though it's not located in Mahoning County or Trumbull County, I think it's Portage County that actually has it.
Yes.
At the end of the day, it'll be that economic drive and that catalyst for many of the communities right in that area, and it's commutable. We'll see the educational issues with the college, research, So it's going to be a big piece for us, and that was kind of that team building opportunity that we had, that bipartisan. Believe me, the trip that we took, we didn't talk where we were, what party we were lined up with. We didn't talk race, gender. We talked Valley, and I think that sent a message to those in DC when we were there.
And if I could add, I think you'll all be happy to hear. I guess I'm at liberty, but I'm going to say it anyway. They've narrowed that choice down to 3 communities, and we're in the final 3. So we're very proud.
Mr. Marpiando, kind of new to the economic development game, at least the title anyway. When you are pitching the Valley, what's the first thing that gets the Valley that you can express?
The first thing that gets the Valley, I think, and it's echoed in both of our mayor's sentiments, is the resiliency. Our community, our region, with the competitiveness that we have, people identify Youngstown and Warren, but we're talking about the Mahoning Valley together in a unified front. I think it's resilience. So we know the hand we've been dealt. A lot of the decisions that to help us compete, unfortunately, in innovation and workforce development and jobs, unfortunately, were made 30, 40, 50 years ago. So to have mayors from 2 different cities, 1 valley, up here tonight talking about going down to DC and getting in front of our legislators and making sure we're getting our fair share here, I think that exemplifies our resiliency. And quite honestly, when we talk about economic development, and being that I'm definitely the newest of everybody in this room probably to the conversation, and as our introduction by a great colleague of mine, Sarah Doherty, talking about defining economic development, I think one of the mayors said egos. A lot of communities that I think are struggling, and I'm stealing this from a former city club conversation in Cleveland, so I don't know who I'm quoting, but this is definitely borrowed. There's ecosystems that we talk about in economic development, and making sure we're having these collaborative conversations. And there's also ecosystems that typically get in the way. So I have a family, I have 3 little brothers, a big Italian family, and we're a family, but we're competitive. And it's just the nature of the industry. You're fighting for jobs, and you're trying to be objective and equitable how you're investing your constituents' tax dollars. So when you're trying to RFP Youngstown or Warren and get these businesses to locate here, it's so easy to let the competition get in the way of collaboration. So again, even though I've only been here 6 years,
can I stop him for a minute? This is the most important thing that we can do in this valley, is get younger people involved.
That's it.
This is our future right here. And you talk about Sarah being up here, and I can look at the TNP table and I see Sean and I see Megan. Hunter, you're not part of that, I'm sorry. But without the young people coming in and the ideas, when we're looking at what's going on in downtown Warren right now, and Revival Downtown Warren, it's a bit because of the old people sitting up here have had these ideas. It's the young people.
Hey. A little too far.
I would at the edge. But it's the young people, it's the energy of the young people, it's the new ideas of the young people, and that's what's going to drive where we go from here. So everybody in this room is part of that, and we need to develop the young people like Dom and like the other people I mentioned, so that we know that we are leaving this valley in very, very good hands, and it's going to grow. Understand that they didn't experience what our fathers and we experienced. They didn't understand what happened in the 1970s when the steel mills left. They're coming in with ideas like, we're not sorry about what happened, we're not sad about what happened, we only know where we can go from here. So, I'm sorry, Dom, you're not new, you're an important part of this.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. We talk about, when you talk about the millennials.
Right.
I'm a father of a 28-year-old, and when my son Aaron, when we talk about issues or subjects, his view and my view are very different. How do we get at the end of the day? How do we get something done? He looks at it totally different. And my wife knows. I talk about our neighbor Stevie. Stevie sells clothes online. He's not getting up. He's not going to a brick and mortar. He's worried about his new website. He's worried about his new brand. He just yesterday he brought us new T-shirts with his new logo on it. While I'm out there scraping my car in the middle of the snow, you know, Stevie's in his pajamas in his bed, because millennials, they have a different concept of where do we go to work. You can work from anywhere. And as mayor, I need to make sure I connect with those individuals, because I need that thought in City Hall. I need to figure out, you know, if the old business model that we have in City Hall is not working for them, but I want it to be attractive to them so they can see that there's an opportunity and a place for them for the future. So when I'm done and sit down and start watching the game, and there is a time when I'm in season. I'm going to do this while I'm in season. And once I'm out of season, I'm going to sit down and watch the game.
Yeah. But let me ask you something. I've heard it described as both the charm and the curse of legacy cities, is that for years they operated with businesses that were headquartered here and took ownership of their city and cared deeply about their city or their community. And then when those disappeared, we talk about the 70s. But at the same time, that sense of ownership left a lot of people feeling left out, feeling excluded. How do you integrate? How do you bring together the old and the new?
I think that's our challenge, particularly as elected officials. I embrace the change. I embrace ideas from younger people, and I with an understanding that there's value in that past. So you know, and I try to educate on that value, where that mindset comes from. But we have a lot of historians. We need visionaries, and the best visionaries I know are coming from the thoughts of these young kids who are just dynamic. So we're really trying to change a mindset, change an attitude, and create an ecosystem of entrepreneurs amongst our young people. And they're there, they're ready. We have to make sure that we, as policymakers, align the business community, especially in government, align the business community with those great ideas coming from these young people. And I think we'll be on track. I'm always energized when I'm around those new ideas that they present. You see what's, you know, mayors aren't above plagiarism. I always say that. So when I see what's going on in other cities, that's why it's so important that we do this traveling and see what's going on. We copy those best practices.
Sure. Just this afternoon, I was talking to the young Marciano, and we were talking about how the city looks, and I mentioned one topic, and he said, "Oh yeah, Mayor, we've already looked at that, and if you want to continue going on, here's what I suggest." So he had it in his mind already, but you have to ask, and once you get them involved and engaged, it's endless for how they can help you drive a city or a community with their ideas that they're holding on. They just want to make sure that they're making a difference in the place they call home and the place they live.
And I think when you look out, you can see the generations, even in this audience, some of the, you know, I don't want to say old timers, I'll get hurt, but you know, like Bob Faulkner's out there, Marty's out there. These are people that really helped shape Warren 30, 40 years ago and are still involved, but you also see the young people. So the strength of our valley is this room, everybody in the room, the generations in this room all working together towards a common goal. You know.
Let me ask you, take it a step further. The immigration story that is playing out internationally now. Youngstown, or the Valley, has played two storylines that have been key to this. One was the deportation of a longtime businessman who lived and loved the city for years. The other is the prison in Youngstown, which is becoming increasingly a holding area for people who have been caught up in the immigration sweeps. Where do you see international migration playing in a place that's away from the borders, but not away from the situation?
Well, I can speak about Al, because it's hit home for me. I was on city council when he took a risk, you know, for downtown Youngstown, for that revitalization to happen that we're enjoying, that we talk about, that's happening there. He took that calculated risk. And for his situation, his story, and there's so many more stories that are out there like his, but his heart and his passion was for this community as a longtime business owner and a business family man, you know, in this community. It was hard to watch the politics play over what was practically, it looked like, should not have happened anywhere in this United States of America where I call home and I love. The immigration piece that you're talking about, this Youngstown and the Mahoning Valley, we've been a community of immigrants. If you go to each table, there's an immigration story at each one of these tables that are here. And people just want to come where they're welcome. where they're open arms. And I talked to the warden just the other day about the detainees that are there, and the whole business of private prisons. That's probably another topic we can have a conversation with on at another time. It's becoming a business, and it's unfortunate because there's some, as I've talked to a professor earlier, there's some guarantees about occupancy rates that's going to happen. No matter what they're doing, there's going to be some occupancy rate. And I'm like, well, if you're saying I guarantee you 80% of occupancy, where are you going to make? How do you make sure that happens? Well, you got to make sure you start grabbing individuals like Al who are not breaking the law, who are contributing to this community, to make sure they're part of that process, which is unfortunate in the United States of America, the place that we call home.
Gentlemen?
I'll just add to that, and that was spoken. I agree with everything Mayor Brown said. The simple fact is we're a nation of immigrants. And I think it's time that this nation has to speak with one voice against what's happening, and speak loud and clear that it goes against all the traditions and values of our country, what's happening.
And yet the Valley heard very strongly Donald Trump's message in 2016. It's not a new issue. He raised it repeatedly in his campaign. What is it that's resonating with your community?
I think that the first thing is that we've got this perception of what an immigrant is in our mind, and our current president, forgive me, any Republicans out there, is playing on that for the politics. But understand, immigrants come in all kinds of shapes and ideas, and what we were talking about, the young people coming in and helping. So we need that same point of view from the immigrants coming in. They also bring a new perspective. And remember, these aren't people coming in just to take minimum wage jobs. We got some talent out there. We got some immigrants coming in to have an education. They have ideas. They see opportunities, and those opportunities can only, what the old, rising tide lifts all boats. So they come in and see opportunities, and sometimes they outwork us. So we can learn as much from them. So when we think of immigrants, we're not thinking of these people, drug dealers that are crossing the border. We're thinking of people that can actually contribute to our society. And as the mayor said, I don't think you go to any table and not hear an immigration story from anybody's parents or grandparents. My grandparents were all born in Ireland. I'm sure that we all have the same stories out there, and they contributed. So we have a tendency anymore in this day and age to take our news bite and just quickly, and we just have this perception of an immigrant that's really not true, and it's far from what the true definition should be and what we should be thinking about.
As a young person?
As a young person.
Yeah, we're leaving Dominic out of this conversation.
The way my back feels every day, I really don't feel that young. So, but to the question,
did you have a slide rule? We have slide rules.
No rules. We break the rules. That's what we have to do in economic development to survive around here. So, honestly, though, Al was my neighbor. I live in downtown Youngstown, so him revitalizing a vacant property and bringing business down there hit home directly. I was out of town when it actually happened, and it was honestly devastating. It was hard just to hear the news, and been trying to keep in touch with his family, see if there's anything we can do. But as both mayors and Mike have said, it's kind of a scary situation. I mean, my grandparents are all here in the audience tonight, who are all proud immigrants. I dedicate, my work ethic and my arrival and why I'm here in Youngstown, because they chose, for whatever reason, family and work, to come here. So, and from just a practitioner standpoint, we've done plans as recent as, 4 years ago of how we capitalize on and create a network, an accessible network for immigrants, because I don't know the exact statistics in Warren, but I'm very confident that they're very similar to what we've studied in Youngstown. But we have thousands of vacant properties. We have an infrastructure to maintain for over 200,000 people, and we've lost 60% of our population. So we have over 250,000 properties that we need people to invest in and take care of and create a neighborhood. So being in this profession, it dilutes opportunities, honestly, to repurpose some of this real estate capital or inventory we have with some potential human capital that we see in other markets across the country, really create an accessible network for immigrants and that population to thrive in our community. And I think Youngstown and Warren are both communities that could strongly benefit from an intentional strategy as part of all of our economic development approaches.
You mentioned about the valley, and you know, when you get here, there's a welcoming piece to it. There's a, you know, once you get to the Mahoning Valley, you know, once you get into your bloodstream, you won't go back home. And many of the individuals that are here, they seek, you know, the valley as they call home. They're not born and raised here, but they call home, and I think that's the welcoming piece that you know. If there's, you know, if you talk amongst others out in the community and say, where would I go where I'm welcome? You want to feel welcome, go to the Mahoning Valley. And I think that's another reason that it may be so attractive for individuals to come here. And Dom talked about, you know, figuring out what to do with the vacant properties. As a mayor, you know, some solutions. You know, we have downtown, I still have some vacant, you know, structures where it might be international housing. You know, if we talk about some of the best educational minds that are coming to Youngstown State or Kent State, they're coming for educational purpose, but a lot of times there's an educational component, and then they stay and use that here, and that's what we like to make sure that we have opportunities here for them.
You're getting to the question of skills. You mentioned many of the things you're dealing with now were decisions made outside your control 50 years ago. But one of the things you hear over and over again is business people saying, I have jobs, I can't match it with the skills. How do you guys change that?
We prepare our workforce in a different way. I think you have to look and approach that totally different. Here's one thing we do know. Whatever's going to happen to the national economy, it usually happens in the valley first. Good. Usually the bad things happen first in the valley. So I think it's imperative that we look at national trends in terms of where's job creation going, and steer our workforce development based upon those realities.
But how do you know? How do you know what the next big thing is?
Well, there's examples, and I'll give you one. Nobody knew that the bioscience industry, except a small group of investors in Northeast Ohio. It was a combination of philanthropists, private businesses, and nonprofits, and government. And they align all of their investments towards workforce development and develop those industries. And over the past 10 years, it's had a 59% increase. That you have to study those trends, and there's people probably in this audience who specialize in that we depend on for that information. But you have to be deliberate about it, and you have to plan accordingly. You know, there's that old saying, you know, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. We have to plan accordingly and be deliberate about our strategies and planning.
Yeah. But I think that's also when you get that public and private partnership, where I sit down with the small business owners and large business owners and ask, what are their needs? And on the fly-in, I had a chance to meet business owners that I probably would have never had a chance to touch or sit down with. So you have to find out what's the need out there as the mayor, and then you even sit down with the university and talk about, here's the skills we need. Advanced manufacturing is out there. It is not my grandfather's steel mill or my uncle's steel mill anymore. So we're going to have to retool the workforce that we have. So when I'm out talking about come to Youngstown, Ohio, come to the Mahoning Valley, I need the workers that are to be ready and prepared when that opportunity happens. We need to be economic ready, not just with land, but with the workers as well. So it's going to take a communication piece from that private and that public sector, talking about, here's what I need. You know, I'm saying, come to Youngstown, come to Warren. But if I don't have workers to fill those positions, then it's a zero game for us.
Okay, I'm ML Schultze, reporter and producer for WKSU, and tonight we're enjoying the State of the Valley Forum. Joining me on stage are the Honorable Tito Brown, the Honorable William Doug Franklin, the Honorable, what the heck, everybody's Michael Keys, and Dominic Marchionda. We're about to begin the audience Q&A, and we welcome questions from everyone. That means City Club members, guests, students, anybody who's joining us by social media. If you have a question, we want to find the answer and make them as tough and as specific as you like. We would ask, though, that you ask a question, not give a speech. So we are asking you to make your way to the microphone in the center of the room. And if you'd like to tweet a question, please tweet it to @CityClubMV, and the staff will try to work it into the program. Ready for the first question?
Hello? Okay. How you guys doing?
Good.
Good. My name is Fred D'Amico. I'm the executive director for a nonprofit in the Valley, actually for the region, from Ashtabula, Portage, Trumbull, Mahoning County, Columbiana County, which would be nice to see up on the panel as well. We have designed this since 2014 to bring the film industry to this area, and I've been working very, very hard. We have millions of dollars, so we've already brought in $800,000. RG Steel got 18 grand about 2 years ago. We brought a movie in last year to Youngstown, using these float loan programs out of Youngstown, but also the community as a whole. I've been looking at the airport. And when you're having flights coming in from LA, they're going to Cleveland and Pittsburgh. We're losing that business, guys. I bring in a movie, there's 65 people on a movie for 30 days. We just brought over 1,200 hotel nights to Holiday Inn. Just one movie. That's a lot of bed tax, a lot of money coming in, a lot of job creation. We have a training program. The youth keep on leaving here like I did. So what we need to do is redesign, so we need to have training here. And what I'd like to do is, I'd like to work with the regional here, and when we were talking about training and all these things, redesigning maybe those old airport hangars into a studio space. We can start training the same industry that Cleveland and Pittsburgh have. So the question is, the enterprise zone. I want to dip into this and see if this is possible. When you go to an enterprise zone or a free trade zone right on the airport, isn't that the, who knows, and Michael, is this enterprise zone, right? If I manufacture a movie out there, if we build a studio out there on enterprise zone, now I'm getting foreign, is that not something that we could look at as an incentive to bring this industry to this region? Utilizing those enterprise zones could be the place to put a studio and attract the business in, because now they're getting that tax-free zone there. They'll train people at the same time.
I know what you're saying. If I understand your question, the answer is yes.
We can do that. Let's do it, guys. Let's tell Hollywood, come to our airport enterprise free zone, or it's enterprise zone, whatever it is. But that is such a benefit.
It's called a foreign trade zone.
I'm sorry, thank you very much.
Let me ask a little bit of a follow-up to that, though, in broader terms. How do you decide what's a good bet for public money and public resources?
And you hit the nail on the head, it's public. You got to understand that we as government don't create jobs. We try to make an atmosphere where jobs can be created, almost like an incubator. But we have to be very, very careful when we're doling out public money. What we have to look at, like any business or any bank, is return on investment. Now, return on investment doesn't necessarily mean cash back to the city, but are there jobs being created? Are there infrastructures happening that's going to benefit the citizens of the city? Is there going to be spin-off businesses that benefit the city? Right. Not just for your industry, Fred, but for everybody. So when we're talking about public money, we have to be extremely careful about the public dollars. So we try to be very, very good stewards. There's no such thing as free money from either of our cities that I'm aware of. It all depends on the return on investment.
It's just an idea.
It's an idea. We appreciate that.
Schulte,
I'm not saying you have to build a studio. Let's first get the industry here for the reason for a studio. But that's thank you.
Okay.
If I may, Schulte, just to elaborate, right here, I can bring it home. Right here in this building is a real practical answer to your question. That's why we had to opt to farm out the management of this facility to JAC Entertainment, because we couldn't risk public money in promoting shows. We just don't do that, and we won't do that. It's just not good business practice. But if the gentleman brings me a producer with a film budget, Warren will be happy to open its doors and create as many films as you want.
The other piece that we have to make sure we're looking at when we're talking about public dollars and private dollars, the return on the dollar. You know, it's kind of, if you give $1 of public money, it translates to about $3.65 in private. Just about. That's I use that around because I say Youngstown, Ohio, the dollar goes a little further. You know, it's more of an impact. If you give me $10 to spend in Columbus, or you give me $10 to spend in Youngstown, Ohio, I'll make a greater impact in Youngstown, Ohio, or Warren than you would in Columbus, Ohio. So the return is a little different in communities like Warren and Youngstown.
Okay. Next question, sir.
My name is Staunton Lynn. I was the lead counsel of a lawsuit that in 1980 tried to keep U.S. Steel in town. We lost. Understandably, following the shutdown of large manufacturing plants Our economic development efforts have focused on large entities, like those that shut down. However, small enterprises that offer services in fact make up most of the area's existing economy. According to the United States Department of Labor, 5 of the 10 most common occupations in the Youngstown metropolitan area, in 5 of the most common, the typical worker makes too little to feed a family of 3 without public assistance. These 5 occupations are 8,990 retail salespersons, 7,660 food prep and serving workers, 6,460 cashiers, 4,420 waiters and waitresses, 4,410 janitors and cleaners. A sound strategy of economic development surely must include workers presently at the bottom of the economic pyramid. And I have copies of that Department of Labor study for anyone who wishes it. Many of these low-wage workers work part-time. The voters of Youngstown have taken a first step. In 2016, the voters enacted a part-time workers' Bill of Rights that addressed benefits and work schedules as well as wages. Basically held that a part-time worker should have 2 weeks' notice as to his or her schedule, and that part-time workers should enjoy the same wage rate and the same benefits as full-time workers proportionately to the number of hours they work. The amended Youngstown City Charter now includes the requirement that employers post a notice informing employees of their new rights.
Sir, we really do need to get to the question so we can get to the answer, because there's a long line of people behind you.
Here's the question, because it's easiest for us to start with something small. The Youngstown Charter, the law of the city, now says that employers must post notices as to the new legal rights of these part-time workers. My question is to the panel, will you help us to get those notices posted?
Well, I guess the first question you mentioned about the employers, I think each employer has that responsibility that lays upon them if it's the law. And the Department of Labor would definitely be one of those areas that they should focus on when he's talking about the part-time labor laws.
But what about cities pass laws, either through voters or through the council, that sometimes feel really good when you pass them? What's the city's responsibility to make sure the law is followed?
I mean, just like any other law, we have to, when you find someone's not, in compliance with that law, there should be some regulations that follow that. As a city, we're on a legislative body and we executive, but then that's going to be a judicial system to see how far did they go past that law, or are they within their rights of that law.
Anybody else have anything to add to that?
No, we're a statutory city, not a charter, so our situation is a little different, but I will just comment briefly on what he said about the changing economy. What we do know is that the large manufacturing plants it's a pipe dream if you're putting all your eggs in that basket. We don't do that. We know that there's a new economy with new technologies. We have to be on the cutting edge of that and be out in front of that in terms of preparing our workforce and making sure we're tracking those new jobs that are in the line that we don't have enough workers for. So that's where we have to focus, and that's I'm glad you gave us that information, because it's well-founded.
Small business retention and expansion. If you look at any economy, if you want to see a growth, it's going to happen with a small business.
All right. Next up.
Us as a group, we was just going younger people, like things to help the community, like help. Y'all discussed that y'all do different things to help us, but we texted you about who to keep kids out of trouble. Ain't nothing getting done. Y'all putting out petitions and all this other stuff. Ain't nothing getting done for kids. So kids just continue to get in trouble and not have nothing to do.
I don't know where those texts came from. I know I have a very strong relationship with Inspiring Minds, and here's what we are doing. We just launched a career development plan for young people, and in that plan, we're matching employers. Some organizations and businesses in this room, over 30 are participating to match their field of interest so that they can do not just these low-paying jobs, but jobs that pay from $12 to $15 with students who know what they want to do, and we're matching those with employers to try to get, and quite frankly, those kind of programs, statistics show, we're trying to keep young, bright minds in our community. When we can hook or match young people up with these businesses, and their first job experience is within their own community, they tend to stay in those communities. And that's statistically proven. So we're trying to stop that brain drain and create an environment where we can optimize the value of young people in those minds. And on the crime and the trouble issue, I always say it. We all need to do a better job. But the first classroom is the home. That's it. And that's going to take all of us. The spiritual community, the schools, and our homes. That's where all of that starts. So it takes all of us to address that crime problem.
Yeah, and it's going to take our next generation to help us, figure out how to steer the ship. If you're asking, we're asking of you, and you're asking of us. It's got to be a collab. We have to come together and figure out, if there are things that are happening in your community, whether it's negative or positive. We need that input. We need that feedback. I have my partner Rex Director with me here today, and I talk about making sure that every time we have an opportunity to touch a young person's life, let's make sure that we affect it the most. Because in the summertime we have summer parks are there. I want to make sure that they're there, but when they leave, they have some substance when they go home. They want to continue coming home and making sure they understand that's a safe place for them to be.
Speaking of safety, perception often is reality when it comes to ideas of public safety. Dominic, you mentioned you live downtown, and I'm sure you've had people look at you and go, why do you risk that? Talk about making people, especially young people, feel comfortable living downtown by choice.
Yes, for me it comes down to a lot of budgeting and where I work and recreate. By living down there, my fiance and I are able to split a car, so we've been able to budget a little bit better in that regard because, if we can't have a meeting within where we live and work, then we usually don't take those meetings. We invite people to come downtown and experience what is down there to offer, and it's very walkable. You find your parking spot once, you could have 4 or 5 meetings a day and take care of business. So for me, it's been a learning curve though too. When I first came back, there was about an eighth of the restaurants and businesses open that are now open 6 years later. So some of it's patience, but some of it's just President Tressel says it all the time. If he wasn't a coach or a president, I'm sure he'd be a marketing CEO or something. But we got to start bragging about ourselves a little bit better. Surely we are bottom of the rankings in a lot of different areas, and a lot of that has to do with perception and accepting mediocrity. And over the past, like I said, 30, 40 years ago, a lot of these decisions these fine leaders are dealing with today in innovative ways. But we got to be out there being ambassadors for where we live, whether it's a neighborhood or a downtown, and it's inviting people to come see it and sharing the good news and making sure you're just letting people know what's out there and how to navigate it. And then from an economic development standpoint, it's taking your policies, whether you're charter or statutory government, and making sure you're updating things like I know the mayor's looking at in our city, Youngstown parking, and our folks from Eastgate are doing a heavy analysis of that, and just engaging stakeholders on a regular basis, doing like what we're doing tonight, having hard conversations and asking what could we do better, and then just rolling up the sleeves and updating things, because our downtowns and our communities were built for large industrial, economy, and they've certainly changed as we've tried to adapt to a more knowledge-based economy and different forms of manufacturing and technology, and making sure that people are aware of all the opportunities that exist, in our neighborhoods.
We have another question?
Our next question is coming from Twitter. What are you doing to bring grocery stores and businesses into Youngstown so Valley community members can shop within Youngstown instead of going to the suburbs?
You say Youngstown, so that's me, right? So here's the first piece. Prior to becoming mayor of the city of Youngstown, I actually put a challenge out to all the candidates, to come up with some type of, we talked about the food deserts, but as mayor, I've come up with a mayor's food policy, and I have a couple of my members that are in the room today, and we want to make sure there's access and opportunity for food for individuals to have healthy foods initiatives in the city of Youngstown. We're going to have to be our own driving force for that. The more we're doing research, that we're not going to look for the big box stores to come into the Youngstown, Ohio, or Warren, Ohio, and we're doing research now. We're going to take a trip up to Toledo. I think it's Primerica. Is that a health company? I'm saying the name wrong, but they've partnered with the city of Toledo, where they've come up with a opportunity to have a grocery store on top of one of their retail stores. So that's just one example of what we're looking at and researching in the city of Youngstown. Baltimore was probably the one that I saw nationally. The mayor of Baltimore partnered with the Salvation Army. So hint, hint, nonprofits can get into this grocery business of supplying healthy foods and healthy access to foods in the cities where you live, because we're probably the only ones who are going to take a calculated risk. When we find that small convenience store, then they're going to look at the return. At the end of the day, they're going to say, what's going to be return on my money? So the mayor of the city of Youngstown, I have a food policy committee. We meet once a month, and I've made sure that it's diverse, and we come from different backgrounds and different areas. And I was just talking to a young man today about cooking. How do we make sure that once we have access to healthy foods, that you know how to cook it and prepare it so it remains healthy for that community.
And I know that in the city of Warren, and what Mayor Brown said is very important too to understand. When we're talking to businesses, they want to come into communities where they know that they're going to get a return on their investment. They have to make some dollars, so we have to make that acceptable to them. But I do want to point out, Matt, if I'm not mistaken, Matt Martin and TNP are going to experiment with the grocery store. And there's an example of what Mayor Brown was talking about in Warren. They will be trying to open their own little store. And I'm probably saying this, Matt, but I think you got it right. But TNP is taking the lead and saying, look, we can't get some of the businesses in, then we got to think outside that box and say, hey, we as nonprofits have got to show them how we can do it and show them that the people will respond to it. So our thanks from the city of Warren to TNP for taking that lead, and you'll soon see that, I'm thinking, on the southeast side. Am I right? Southwest side of Warren. So these are some of the things, like I said, when you have younger people coming in with better ideas and saying, yes, maybe the Giant Eagles aren't going to go there, but hey, how about this idea, and let's try it. So we're doing that same thing in Warren, and again, our thanks to them.
And as a sort of a commercial announcement, since we're talking about food, the city of Warren's partnered with the Warren Family Mission and the Second Harvest Food Bank will be having a free frozen blueberry giveaway all over throughout the city in 4 quadrants of the city. Come and get as many as you want, and there'll be instructions on how you can access and recipes to cook.
Youngstown as well.
You know, plagiarism is out there.
All right, our next question.
Hello, my name is LaShonda Allen. I'm currently the manager of the Youth Build program.
Yes.
And I heard you guys speak a lot about how people have, jobs available and they don't have the people to enter into those jobs. In my program, we actually train students in carpentry and construction work. And we also pay for them to get their high school diploma or GED. A lot of the people here in this area, they find alternative ways of education and things like that, and that's kind of our focus. What are ways that you guys are reaching out to these organizations like mine, and also Inspiring Minds and all the other organizations in terms of
I'd be happy to answer that. In the city of Warren, we actually fund some of the youth build projects. I think youth build is a wonderful program. We find, and along with TNP, have donated houses for youth build. We've donated money to youth build to help with the rehabs. You just finished one at 1100 Youngstown Road that we helped to fund in Warren. And we've also given some money to help with the educational side. These kind of programs are very important. These are kids that need to learn a trade. And as we talked about earlier, the education piece and the piece that employers are looking for are people, especially in skilled trades. So this program is extremely important. The Department of Labor puts a lot of money into this program also. And we in the city have contributed hundreds of thousands of dollars to youth build over the past decade.
Okay, and one more question. In terms of transportation, what is coming up, or is there any type of plans for transportation to help people to get to those jobs and things like that?
Constant battle. Go ahead, Mayor, if you want to.
Well, I know in Youngstown, WRTA, we're talking about the, I think I mentioned earlier, the old business model and versus, then next to the new business model of, when we had 120,000 people, that bus route can't be the same. It's going to have to change, but the needs are different now. There's a different need for individuals out there. So I think working with the WRTA and asking and telling them the needs that we have, I hear all the time, no Sunday service. For individuals to travel, if you have a job that wants you to work on a Sunday. But I'd like to say a little more about the youth build. We had a youth build program in Youngstown, and it was a great program. One of the things that I work on right now is working with the local unions, and they're trying to make an apprenticeship early. They want to reach the kids early, and I'll speak just for myself as being a middle-aged guy here.
Okay.
That was, trades was not, an acceptable thing when I was going out of school. When I'm coming out of school, it was, you're going to go to college, you're going to go to military. No, it was kind of the dirty word. Have you ever tried to get a plumber or electrician to come to your house and how much they might make per hour? And you need those individuals. And now they're trying to make sure that, everything runs on electric now. If even the lights, in the city of Youngstown, I go down to our light department, and they're all electricians because that's how things are working. So we want to make sure that we can connect with the individuals younger and let them know that is not a dirty word. We need to make sure they have all the educational options available and put it in front of them. So that's what I'm doing as mayor, working with those laborers to make sure we can get them to the young people.
Our next question.
I'm Chris Ligo. I work with Legal Aid. I'm also a longtime Valley resident. So there are two issues that I'd like to know whether the panel is considering working on. One is the perceived problem that we have a lot of residents who have drug addictions, and whether you're perceiving as the opiate crisis something that is a barrier to employment in the Valley. And the other issue is returning citizens, that is people who've been convicted, served their time, they're coming back to the community, and then face barriers to getting decent jobs. And I'm just wondering if there are programs that you're thinking of addressing.
That's very important to the employers in our valley. You don't know how many times, and I'm sure all the ED people out there will tell you, that employers tell us they're having a hard time finding people who can pass a drug test to get employed. We don't drive that, mostly the insurance companies drive that, but yes, it is an issue. It's surprising because sometimes you look at the unemployment statistics in the Youngstown, Warren area and say we're higher than the average in the state and the country, but yet I go to employers who say I'm having a hard time getting people to come to work for us because they can't pass the drug test. There's a big education component of that. There's much more than an ED component. And I know that this is very near and dear to Mayor Franklin's heart. I know that he gets involved with this. And this is a dilemma that we have. I don't know that there's a simple answer that we can come up with maybe in the next 5 minutes. But I want to turn it over to the mayor because I know how he feels.
Yeah, we make a deliberate attempt to about second chances because we understand where we are as a society and what some of the challenges are for returning citizens. So we partner with organizations like Free Indeed, Circle for Recovery. We've made some own adjustments and we actually followed Youngstown's lead on it with your application banning the box. That was pretty much spearheaded by a nonprofit that was aggressive in actually these things are working. What I think we have to be about, because we still can't. And there are programs out there where employers are given waivers when they take second chances and given some other additional benefits and insurances, because there is that stigma that comes if you have a felony. So we're trying to work through those issues as well. It's a very important issue to me, but also to our community. We all have to face the fact that, like it or not, these citizens are coming home.
Sure.
And we want them to be skilled, and we want them to be productive assets to our community. So what I try to do when I talk to people, particularly if they're returning citizens, don't wait on that job. You have to sort of take the initiative and become your own entrepreneur. And they have a lot of skills. They have a lot of skills, and most of them, believe it or not, they're drug-free. They're ready to work. But I think they have to tap into this new economy and really drive their own destiny. It's just a price that they have to pay, but we always want to be there to help them.
Right. Absolutely.
One final question from Twitter. How can we increase the amount of business that the city does with state-certified minority businesses that are operating in Mahoning Valley?
I would first say we have to make sure that we identify those business owners who are there, but also remove barriers. And the first under 200 days being the mayor of the city of Youngstown, one of the things that I look at the border controls and I start asking, who are we doing business with? Are they local? And I just found a local company. They've been in business over 20 plus years, and the city's never done any business with them. And I think, and they're probably a quarter of a mile from City Hall. All their business was outside of the city of Youngstown. And now, as mayor, I'm looking at that and examining, why aren't we doing with those who are here? So we need to make sure we identify them. Also, we need to make sure we remove those barriers. We don't want to make it any harder for them. Give them the same opportunity that we give anybody else, and even the playing field for those who are doing business.
And if I may mention, we're also working very hard with Minority Business Assistance Center, which under Carmela has gotten put your hand up, Carmela. You're doing good work. You're doing good work. So what we're hoping is, by working with the MBAC and getting involved with them, that we can get a lot more entrepreneurs, we get a lot more minority companies that get certified, not only certified, but they don't necessarily have to be certified to do certain things for us. So we're working very closely with that. I know I sit on her advisory board, and I'm very aware of the good work that we're doing, and we are trying to correct that and do as best we can in that area.
And I have to add, I'm glad Carmela's here, and I just invited her to come and give a presentation to City Council. She's going to be my mayor's report at the next City Council, the first City Council meeting in July. But what I want to also talk about is, it's not just about bringing the minority businesses together and underfunded or historically disadvantaged businesses together. They've also put together a system where they're bringing lenders together, because you can have a great idea. If you don't have capital, you just got an idea. So she has a comprehensive approach, and we are sharing her with Youngstown.
We house her, right?
Yeah,
Some of that collaboration.
See, there it is.
That's that collaboration.
She's housed in the city, but she works throughout the valley.
Yes.
Okay, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Hannah Ferguson. I am a resident of Youngstown. I am also a small business entrepreneur. And my question is kind of directed towards small businesses like myself trying to find a space. It seems like it's easier for us to go to the suburbs like Morgan or Canfield because the buildings are move-in ready. As far as myself, I could have easily moved into one of those spots, but I desperately want to stay in Youngstown. Are there any plans or is there anything set up right now for someone like me and the people who want to stay in Youngstown or possibly Warren to help assist in the buildings that we have that aren't necessarily move-in ready, but they need more work than we could possibly afford to move in right now?
Before we say anything, Hannah, can you tell her what your business is?
I am a winemaker. I am looking to open up urban winery in Youngstown.
First of all, I want to say that is an interesting problem as part of the growth. It's nice to know that there are problems finding spaces in our cities. I mean, that's something 15 years ago that nobody would ever believe, that we didn't have the space. I will defer to Mayor Brown, being as that the winery is going into Youngstown.
Well, I like that.
We don't want to poach your job.
No, it's not a poaching. I mean, she's local grown, and
right.
The issue is, one of the issues, Hannah, that we, and all the other business owners that we face is acquisition, that we don't have control. The problem with a thriving downtown or a thriving city, those who own those properties, may have disinvested years ago, but they're still holding on to them. So we have to come up with a plan to figure out how they either put their investment into it, and what we don't want them to do is drive the price of the Hannahs of the world who want to invest. They want to be part of the downtown growth, but the owners who own the buildings are kind of like holding on to them or raising the rents. Just real quick, and I know we're close to time. Phelps Street. We're talking about whether we keep Phelps Street open downtown or close it down. First time we had that conversation, there's for rent signs, and I said with occupancy on Phelps Street, we need to increase it and move it on. I went on 21 News. Individual called one of the signs. It says for rent. The price doubled right after the 6 o'clock news went on because they're now holding on. They're speculators. But we need to make sure that they're up to code as well. So there's a problem with that. It's a good problem to have. So Hannah, we won't let you go anywhere. We'll find you. If you got to come into my basement and do it, we'll do it.
Can I add something real quickly, Hannah? I congratulate you. I hope you're successful. We'll be some of your first customers when you're up and running. But I would like just what I would suggest, and I know you have a counterpart, it's our Trimble County Land Bank. I see some of those members here who run ours. If the Mahoning County Land Bank, they use, sometimes their inventory might accommodate.
Sure, thank you.
Okay. I know there were some folks who were lined up who wanted to ask some other questions. I'm going to volunteer these four gentlemen to hang around and answer them for you.
We will.
It's really cool when people have more questions than we have time for, because it means you're deeply involved in your community and you want to make a difference, and that's a wonderful thing. So I'd say give yourselves all a hand.
Wow. I now have a longer list of to-dos. I was death staring at my colleague because last summer we did a report on retail space, or space for small-scale manufacturers, so it looks like that's going to go at the top of the list again. I want to thank our speakers, the Honorable Mayor Brown, Mayor Franklin, Michael D. Keys, I've never done the D before, I like it, and Dominic Marchionda. Our moderator, Emma Schwartzy, thank you so much.
Great job.
The City Club of the Mahoning Valley is presented by the Raymond John Ween Foundation, the Youngstown Foundation, and Youngstown State University, with additional support from the Community Foundation of the Mahoning Valley, WYSU 88.5 FM. We appreciate your support of City Club programming. Additionally, we welcome guests at tables hosted by Harrington Hoppia Mitchell, Haywood Doe Consulting, Kent State University at Trumbull, MS Consultants, NYO Property Group, PNC, Trumbull Neighborhood Partnership, United Methodist Community Center, and the YWCA Mahoning Valley. Special thanks to the Business Journal, our community partner, and Packard Music Hall, our venue today. I've been told that there is an after party to continue the conversation at the Speakeasy, which is on Courthouse Square, right where the Best Western is. So I hope to see some people there. And that brings us to the end. So thank you once again to our speakers.